Thank you for listening to this Podcast One production. Now available on Apple Podcasts, Podcast One, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
December 2nd, 2011, Detroit, Michigan.
Somebody must have hijacked him or something, and my niece is in the car.
Okay, how old is she?
She's 2.
DeAndre Lane says he is the victim of a carjacking with his 2-year-old daughter Bianca in the back seat.
I remember saying, let me get my baby out the car.
How did the case of Bianca Jones go from a missing persons to a homicide investigation in a matter of hours?
It was always coming my way. Everything was always directed at me from Jump Street. There was never any kind of investigation until what actually happened. It was always him.
In a 5-part series of Killer Genes, you'll hear all the facts and suspicions around the case. And you decide, is an innocent man serving life in prison? Is Bianca still alive? Or did he murder his own daughter? Did you kill your 2-year-old daughter, Bianca? The following episode of Killer Genes contains graphic and sensitive information and material. Listener discretion is advised.
Emmy-nominated true crime journalists bring you cases like you've never heard them before. Hear first-hand accounts from the victims' families, private investigators, lawyers, law enforcement, and even the convicted. Giving you a complete 360 of the case like no one else can.
I'm Melissa McCarty.
I'm Kelly McClear.
And this is Killer Genes.
Detroit 2011, once a bustling hub of the automotive industry, has turned into a scene out of an apocalyptic sci-fi movie. The population has fallen to a little over 700,000 people. Businesses are shut down. Homes are vacant and boarded up. The residents that are left are struggling to get by.
According to the FBI, there were 344 murders, over 9,000 aggravated assaults, almost 16,000 burglaries, and over 11,000 motor vehicle thefts, making Detroit one of the most dangerous cities in the United States. So it was no surprise when on December 2nd, 2011, a woman named Mary Grandy makes a call to 911 at 7:47 a.m.
Hi, my name is Mary, and my niece was just stolen in a vehicle. My address is Custer, and her father is really upset. Somebody must have hijacked him or something, and my niece is in the car.
Okay, how old is she?
She's 2.
Did they use a weapon on him? Which way did they go? What kind of vehicle was it?
You need to talk to me, sweetheart. Oh, my God. I remember. Custer. I gotta find out what kind of vehicle.
The 2-year-old baby is Bianca Jones, who is also affectionately called BB. And the distraught voice you hear in the background is her father, DeAndre Lane. He says he's just been carjacked, with Bianca still in her car seat.
Ask them, did they have a weapon?
Did they have a weapon? Yes. My baby, if they did. Yes. My baby. Coming down towards Brush, he said they started blowing, saying they needed help, and they pulled the gun.
And you're at 253 Custer, correct?
253 Custer, yes.
Okay, I'll update with that information, okay?
According to DeAndre, he was headed over to Bianca's mother's house, Pinky Jones, to pick up some clothes when he was carjacked at gunpoint. The robbers taking off with the vehicle and baby Bianca inside.
DeAndre doesn't remember much about being at the house or Mary making the 911 call, but what he does remember is the carjacking.
Hello, this is a prepaid call from
Sure.
a prisoner at the Michigan Department of Corrections, some facility. If you feel you are being victimized or extorted by this prisoner, Please contact GTL customer service at 855-466-2833.
I was driving. I'm on my way to Pinky's, and as I'm driving, I hear somebody blowing their horn. So I'm looking. I'm like, what the heck going on? They're blowing their horn. They're blowing their horn. I roll my window down. I hear your brake light out. Your brake light's out. I'm like, okay, all right, what's going on? So I crossed over Grand Boulevard, pulled over, you know what I'm saying, to see what was going on, and this is where the incident took place. And I was carjacked at gunpoint. I mean, it was like a real situation. I didn't even believe that it was even happening. I remember saying, like, you know what I'm saying, like, I was just saying, like, let me get my baby out the car. Let me get my baby out the car. Like, I wasn't even worried about the car. I was just worried about getting her out. And I even remember, like, chasing after the car after they pulled off. Like, I don't even know how long I even ran. But this is, like, one of the hardest parts in this situation because with everything that's going on, it's like, I feel like, I mean, is there something more I could have did? Because at times I actually feel like if I'd have got shot right then and there, like maybe then people would understand the situation, or maybe, you know what I'm saying, there would have been more effort towards actually finding her if something would have happened to me.
DeAndre, what did the car look like that pulled up behind you? And then what did the two men look like?
I mean, I remember the car being like a burgundy-ish color. So I guess one of those kind of like a foreign car, like Toyota or something, like one of those like kind of boxy-shaped cars. One of the guys had a mask or something covering his face. And this was the person that was driving. The guy that actually got out, you know what I'm saying, the car was a light-skinned gentleman, kind of tall, freckles, afro, low haircut, clean shaven, maybe with like, you know what I'm saying, a little bit of facial hair, but not, you know what I'm saying, a full beard or whatever. I just remember him having like dirty hands.
He wasn't wearing a mask?
No. And like that was something that was odd because like the person that was driving the car actually did have something covering their face where I couldn't really see them, or I just remember his hands was dirty. The gun being pointed at me. All I wanted to do was get my daughter out the car.
Do you remember, I don't know, what kind of gun it was? Anything else, maybe what he was wearing?
I remember it was a revolver, chrome revolver. He had on like a Dickie style jacket and jeans. I don't remember his shoes. I wasn't really surprised he got out of the vehicle. I was surprised that he pulled a gun on me. I wasn't looking at this as being a sinister type situation. You know, early in the morning, broad daylight. Like, I'm not thinking like that. But when I go towards the back and he gets out and I see the gun, and I'm just like, what? I'm in shock. Like, what the heck is going on?
Did he say anything to you? What did he say to you?
He told me to get the fuck back. And I just was like, just let me get my daughter out. Let my daughter in the car. Just let me get my daughter out the car. And he just kept saying, like, get back, you know. And all I just remember he kept saying is, just let me get my daughter out the car.
So after this gentleman gets out of his vehicle with a gun and says, get the fuck back, what happens after that?
I remember, like I said, I'm pleading to let me get my daughter. And I remember seeing like car pulling off, both cars pulling off. And I ran after them. I don't know how long I ran after them, but I ran after them. And then it's like, things is like a haze it was like a haze came over me. I don't even know what happened for some time. The next thing I remember is I was running towards Bonica's house.
How far were you from Bonica's house? How far, when you pulled over, how many blocks away was Pinky's house?
Maybe about 5 or 6 blocks. Like, it wasn't too far. Because of the fact I don't really, like I said, I don't even remember how far I actually ran chasing these people. I don't remember what route I just remember running to her house. Like, I really don't remember exactly how I got there or anything. I'm seeing it like I'm feeling like I'm seeing this from a third person point of view. If you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like I'm not really there. I'm watching it, but I'm not really experiencing it. So everything is kind of like, it's like a haze, it's like a dream state almost. Like, it wasn't real to me. I just remember running to the house.
So you end up running after the vehicle. You lose it. You decided to run to Pinky's house.
Yeah, I ran to Pinky's house. Now, the things that subsequently happened here are things that I heard happen. Like, from the point of the carjacking and me remember running after the car and running, like, when I got to the house, they said that I basically bust through the door. I came in, she was like, they were talking to me, they were trying to figure out what was going on. And she said that she was trying to talk to me, but I was kind of like incoherent. And I gave them some information.
The information that DeAndre was trying to give is what you heard on the 911 call. 2 questions. Why didn't you call 911 after they took the car? And also during the 911 statement, you can be heard in the background saying, "I can't do this." Can you maybe try to remember a little bit more about the 911 call?
I'm not really sure. Like, maybe because they said that I called Lisa, and like maybe that was me trying to call 911. I don't know.
Lisa is DeAndre's roommate and owner of the now stolen vehicle.
I've heard the audio of the 911 call. I don't remember any of that really, and that's just me being honest. I really don't remember it.
What happened when Detroit PD arrives at the house? Do you remember what happened then?
But at this particular time, like I say, I remember going out. I remember being on her on Pinky's porch, and she was talking to me, and there were police like everywhere. There were police all over the place, and I remember, I remember hearing officers. I remember hearing a group of officers that was close to the porch. They had said something about the fact of, like, oh, he's a drug dealer. He probably had something to do with this. You know what I'm saying? I remember that being said by one of the officers. It was a female voice, and I believe I even told Pink, I was like, I think they think I did something.
2-year-old Bianca Jones is kidnapped in an apparent carjacking. Bianca's mother, Pinky Jones, remembers getting the call while she was in class.
It was my brother calling. And he was telling me that DeAndre was there. And I could hear noises in the background. And he was telling me that Bianca was missing. I'm like, took her? I need to come home right now. I could hear DeAndre's voice. I realized that was him, like wailing, like making these noises. Like I never heard noises like that from him. I've seen him angry. I've seen him happy, sad, excited. The day I met DeAndre was after his mom's funeral. I've seen him go through every spectrum of emotion. I've never heard noises like that come out of him. I just grabbed my coat and I told my brother to just come get me. And I grabbed all my stuff and I just started running. When I got to my house, I mean, at the time that I was living on Custer, and my brother turned the corner down my street, and all these cars, all up and down the block, cop cars and other cars, news vans with giant antennas on the top, and all these people. And DeAndre was on the porch, just like pacing around in circles and making that noise. Tried to talk to him. He couldn't even see me, I don't think. You know, I was trying to like get his attention. I was like grabbing him by the collar and yelling his name, but he didn't even look at me. He was kind of like looking through me and just wailing and making that noise. And then the police were there and they was asking us questions, and they wouldn't let me talk to my mom. They wouldn't let me talk to my sister. They wouldn't let me talk to anybody. They kept telling me I had to go off by myself, just talk to them alone by myself. I need to talk to DeAndre. I need to know what happened, but I couldn't talk to him either. They separated us. They separated me from everybody. They finally let my sister come with me, and they took us to a police station a couple blocks from my house. And I don't know how long we was there. They just kept asking me questions. They wanted to know all about DeAndre, tell us all about his baby mamas, tell us about his wife, tell us about his job, tell us where he lives, tell us everything about DeAndre, everything you know about DeAndre. And they didn't ask me anything about anybody else, just DeAndre. I figured, you know what? They have to suspect us first. So, yeah, okay, go ahead. Suspect the hell out of me. Dig deep. Go ahead and do what you need to do. And once you figure out we didn't do nothing, then you will start to go and suspect other people. So I figured, let's just get this part out the way. Go ahead. Do your digging. And then we can go move on to the next part where you look for my kids. But it was no next part. It never was no next part. It was just always keep digging.
DeAndre Lane would be arrested for the murder of his daughter Bianca, but Bianca's body has never been found.
DeAndre Lane and Pinky Jones not only share a daughter together, but a history.
I met DeAndre originally when I was about 12 years old.
And you guys dated off and on for years, right?
Oh, yeah. You know how that is, like first love and off and on and off and on. It was never like, I don't know. It was always like it was never really, really over. It was always like, well, I can always call you back if I want to, right? And it was always just kind of like a wink, yeah, okay, whenever I need to call you, I can. And that basically was, it was like, oh, I'm sick of you. We're going to break up, but I'll call you in a year.
So what is it about DeAndre that made you want to keep going back and giving it a go?
Well, he's smart. You know, he's really smart, and he's funny, and we used to read a lot of books and talk about the books we read. We both watched Star Trek, which, I mean, growing up in the hood, sometimes, you know, you don't always have another kid to geek out with, so it was kind of cool to have somebody to geek out with.
When you found out
I found out that I was pregnant with Bianca, it was kind of weird because we weren't actually dating. We were just kind of messing around, and I was like, oh, wow. I was like, well, I'm about to be 30, and I don't want to wait too late, and why not? I'm going to have this baby. And I told him, and he was like, what? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, wow. And I was like, I know, right? And he was like, well, this is going to be crazy. And I was like, it is. It's going to be weird. But it's going to be, he was like, okay. So he was like, well, we going to have a boy. And I was like, it's going to be a girl. And I got the sonogram, and he was like, what? I'm like, it's a girl. He's like, why do you always get what you want?
Bianca Jones was born on November 27, 2009, making her DeAndre's 7th child. But that didn't stop him from spending time with her. Pinky, DeAndre said that even though Bianca lived with you, he was over there all the time. He would come over.
He came to my house every morning like clockwork. Every morning, like clockwork. By 9 o'clock. So it wasn't like he didn't see her or she didn't know who he was. I had pictures actually of him napping on the couch, holding her, and they both sleeping on the couch. He spent time all the time with his daughter every day. A lot of people made a lot of the fact that he was unemployed, he wasn't paying child support, he didn't have no money. And I tell people all the time, he spent time with his daughter.
She was so much like me. It's like, looking at her was like looking into a mirror, but seeing a female version of myself. She had a lot of my mannerisms, my facial expressions, and she was just my baby girl, It's like, it's hard to explain, when you're a parent, and you're seeing versions of yourself, and just the way that she moved, the way that she talked, the way that she, like I say, carried herself. I just saw so much of myself there.
Even though times were tough in Detroit and he and Pinky were no longer dating but still co-parenting, DeAndre was no deadbeat dad.
So, Dre, you, at the time in December of 2011, you were going back to school. What were you doing to, I don't want to say turn your life around, but, better your life for your children and your family? What were your plans?
Well, at the time, I was actually going to school. I wanted to become an educator. And it's something that I had been working on for a while, and with me being back in Detroit and me having, my children around, I wanted to set an example. And that's why, school was very important to me because I stressed education to the children in my family, my nieces and nephews, my children. I stressed this to them. So I wanted to get back and finish what I had started because I was previously going to the same school before, and I was a straight A student while I was there, and it was something I was proud of. So I wanted to keep embarking on that journey and show them, no matter what you go through in your life, you can achieve something if you put your mind to it and you put your efforts to it. So that was very important for me. So outside of that, like I said, I was still doing odd and end jobs. I was, I cut hair. I did, like I said, home improvement work. I did whatever I could in order to bring money in to help support my family.
In December of 2011, DeAndre was living with his friend Lisa. Also living in the house was DeAndre's daughter Alandra, his then girlfriend Anjali, and their daughter together, Addison.
Now, it's a 3-bedroom home. The girls had the bunk beds in their room. Alandra had the top bunk. The two smaller children, they were only 2. They shared the bottom bunk. Lisa had her room, and me and Anjali had our room upstairs. Now, the house, it was a clean house. There was no kind of drugs or alcohol or craziness going on, It was a family environment. We all did whatever we had to do to make sure everybody was, taken care of. There was always food in the house. There was clean clothes. There was no cause for alarm for anyone. Everything was fine in the house. And Anjali was working and going to school. Lisa was working. I wasn't working at the time, but I was kind of freelancing. I did work for people off and on, home improvement and things like that, landscaping, things like that. But my focus was more so on making sure my girls were okay and making sure the women that stayed in the house with me were okay.
Bianca, who also goes by BB, had a birthday coming up, and DeAndre wanted to make it a special one. So he and Pinky came up with a plan.
Because I have, 2 of my daughters were already staying with me, and, me and Pinky had made an agreement that, around the time of BB's birthday, that she would come, saying to spend the weekend and to celebrate her birthday with her sisters, and so they can bond with each other. So she came over for the weekend. We actually had a great time. We went shopping. We went to see The Lion King 3D, which is one of my favorite movies, and I wanted to share that with them. Had ice cream, cake, everything, And that Sunday, when I talked to her, or I think it was that Sunday when I talked to her mom, and like I said, she was only supposed to be over for the weekend, she had talked to me and asked me, could I just go ahead and keep her for the week? That was fine. I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then at the end of the week, we had a discussion, and she was like, well, I've been thinking I need to get some stuff together with my house, and I need to get some stuff together with me. Do you think that you could keep her longer? So we had made a decision to say that I was just going to keep BB with me up until January or so. I was going to bring her back to her mom for like Christmas, so she can celebrate with her. Then I was going to go pick her back up, and then in January we were kind of going to split custody, and both of us were supposed to be going and enrolling back in school and everything, and we were going to be going to the same school. Both of us were going to WC3 downtown campus, and we were supposed to line up our schedules so that when I'm in school, she can be with her, and when she's in school, she'll be with me. So everything was just lined up, and we were getting to a point. And I was happy about it because we didn't have to involve there wasn't any kind of negativity or hostility. We didn't have to get the courts involved. It was amicable, and everything was going to be smooth. And my daughters and everyone was going to have a chance to really be around each other and grow up together. So I was happy about the situation.
Pinky also recalls their agreement.
It was actually right before her birthday, and we were talking about, I was trying to find a job. It was right after the whole financial collapse, and I had lost a decent job that I had, and I was trying to find another one. So I told him, I'm going to try and see if I can get in this program. Maybe I can find something. Maybe something will shake loose. And I need you to take Bianca while I'm doing this, because I won't be able to drop her at daycare every morning and pick her up. I didn't have a car at the time. And so, you can take her, and I'm going to go doing this program. And so he picked her up, and at first he was only going to keep her just a couple of days, right up until her birthday. But I asked him to keep her longer, maybe keep her till Christmas. Her birthday is November 27th. And so I'm asking, just keep her a month. And I figured by the end of the month, I'd have a job by then, and we'd have some kind of schedule to work with, and we could plan around that. Because we were good at co-parenting. We planned around schedules. We were taking classes. We had already set the classes up, so neither one of us was ever not able to take care of her. And so I just asked him, just keep her another month. And he was excited. He was excited to spend time with her. That was his first chance to really, really have some quality time with her.
But that quality time would not last long. DeAndre claims he was carjacked on the morning of December 2nd with Bianca in the vehicle. Law enforcement is called, but the investigation would not go how you would expect it to.
The police said that he told them that somebody bumped his car, and then he got out to look at the car, and they put a gun in his face, and then took the car, and he chased it for a while, and then turned around and ran back to my house. But they were telling me that's what he said, but they were telling me that's what he said, but come on now, that ain't how it goes. That ain't how it goes. And I'm like, I don't know how it goes. I don't know. I don't steal cars. I don't know how this goes. I don't know. All I know is Law and Order and CSI. I'm pretty sure that's all fake though. So I don't know how it goes. But they made it seem like, come on, you guys, you know how this works. And they just never conceived of the idea that we could be victims. We were just not victim material. People get carjacked in Detroit all the time. For a while, it was like a carjack capital. They had to start slapping on all these extra federal charges to get it to stop. They still carjack people. A preacher got carjacked here a couple months ago. A fellow preacher. I don't know anybody that's immune to victimhood. You don't want to be a victim. Nobody wants to be a victim, but that doesn't mean that nothing can happen to you.
Why do you think they felt that you were immune? Why do you is it something they actually said, or what was the vibe and the sentiment the way they were acting when saying and treating you as if...
They made it seem like, look, why would somebody steal your kid? Like, your kid, what would be the value of my child? What would be the point of stealing my child? Why would somebody want to steal my baby? You know? Like she didn't have like she wasn't worth taking. Nobody would ever be concerned. So, you know, obviously you guys are cooking this all up because you're bad parents that did something to your kids. Because they made it seem like we could not be good parents because we're poor people and we live in the bad neighborhood. So how could you possibly be good parents? You're probably drug addicts and dropouts and all. I'm screaming like I'm a veteran. I pay taxes. I'm a homeowner. I got a perfect score on my ACT. I don't understand.
Did DeAndre's past have anything to do with law enforcement suspicions? Turns out, DeAndre had a bit of a rap sheet.
My first drug charges were possession of heroin and possession of cocaine and a felony firearm and a felony possession of a firearm. So it was a gun charge and 2 drug charges. Now, this was also like before this, because this was like back in 2003. So here we are, this is 2011. So we're talking about, 7 or 8 years later.
And how much time did you do for those charges?
I did a little bit over 4 years. Was at a point in time where I couldn't find employment. And like most men in the neighborhoods I grew up in, it was something that was selling drugs and something that was readily available, and it was a way to make easy money. And at the time, I was helping my sister out with her bills and with my nieces and nephews. I had my oldest son staying with me at the time, and I did what I felt at that time I had to do in order to make ends meet. And I wound up getting arrested and serving like 4 years behind that. And one of the things I said when I came home was that I was going to do everything in my power to not make that same ill-advised decision.
Do you think that there was a chance that the carjacking was in retaliation for anything from your previous life?
I've never had any kind of interactions with anybody. I never had any kind of beef or any kind of disagreement. I wasn't like none of that transpired. When I was involved in selling drugs or anything, I've never shorted anybody. I never cheated anybody. It was always my money I did everything with, so I didn't have any kind of partners or any kind of people like that. It was just always me. So there was no way that could be in connection.
Shortly after the carjacking, Detroit Police Department detained DeAndre on an outstanding warrant for violating a protective order taken out by his ex-wife. An incident DeAndre claims was a big misunderstanding. But while in custody, law enforcement turns the screws with a heated line of questioning that pointed the finger at DeAndre for murdering his missing daughter Bianca and with him staging the carjacking. Detroit PD administers a polygraph test the same day. DeAndre's defense attorney, Terry Johnson, contests that decision.
Anybody who does a polygraph should know that, you have to be on a level field. For example, you just can't have an emotional outbreak or an emotional situation like he just had. Someone had kidnapped his child, and a few hours later you are, strapped up to a polygraph machine. That's just impossible for anybody to pass. So I think that was actually wrong. And also, based upon what I heard of some of the tactics that the police department used, it just wasn't a fair situation to Mr. Lane.
Do you remember taking the polygraph that day?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember what questions they asked you?
They asked me, did I know where my daughter was? Did I have something to do with her abduction? Did I hurt my daughter? Just questions along those lines,
And DeAndre, the results came back saying that you, the results came back saying deception indicated. Why do you think that is?
when I took my polygraph, they never said you lied. They said deception detected. Then, I remember this vividly because this was so crazy to me. Me and my lawyer were on Nancy Grace, the TV show Nancy Grace, and Nancy Grace had 3 polygraph experts on her show, and they were talking about the polygraph, and all 3 polygraph experts concurred that they all agreed that you're never supposed to give a person that's went through a traumatic incident a polygraph at that time. They said because, especially if a person is a victim of something, their emotions and stuff are high, adrenaline is going, like you're supposed to wait until the person is calm and they're able to really gather their thoughts and see what's going on. Every last one of those people were like, that polygraph is inadmissible. That was terrible. Like whoever told him to take a polygraph at that time was crazy. And I remember her cutting everybody off because they didn't agree with her.
Or they should have given you the opportunity to take a second one. Would you right now, if somebody could come in there and say, we're giving you another polygraph?
I can't say that I would because I don't even trust the process.
But people are going to say, well, if you've got nothing to hide and you had nothing to do with this, then what's the point? What's the problem with taking another polygraph?
I had nothing to hide in the first place. And still, nobody can tell me what actually happened with the polygraph. Like, if you're saying that I was deceptive, what questions was I deceptive on? So you saying that like there was no truth being told in any one of the questions? Like, you asked me stuff about my name. Was I deceptive there? You asked me about my birthday. Was I deceptive there? Like, I don't even know what the actual outcome of the polygraph was. But what I do know is I know that every time I turned around, there was a finger being pointed at me, and everything that I ever did in my life was being turned around against me and used as a tool to make me look like some evil person who committed some heinous act. And I'm trying not to get emotional here.
Bianca's mother, Pinky, even questions the use of the polygraph. So he's brought down to Detroit PD. He's questioned for hours. Still denies doing it. He takes a polygraph and he fails. Now, there's obviously a lot of stuff with that because, in all essence, he should not have been given a polygraph on that same day, just for the sheer fact that it won't be conclusive.
Can nobody? I can't even understand for the life of me why we even use polygraph machines anymore. It's like the mood ring of science. Honestly, the guy that invented the polygraph hooked it up to a fern, and it failed. A fern, a plant, failed a polygraph. They are not in any way scientific at all. None. They're the worst piece of crap ever. It's like junk. I don't even know why we use polygraphs anymore. Nobody can explain this to me except for it just feels good.
So the investigation into Bianca's disappearance turned from a missing person to a homicide investigation very quickly, with you being suspect number 1. Why do you think that is?
Well, I believe that once they saw, because there was a lot of different speculations about me, and I feel like because I feel like they never actually, investigated the actual carjacking. I think that was like the farthest thing from their mind. I think they instantly went into investigating me. So even though it was a missing person in the beginning, they still were investigating me. Because every time the police said anything, it came back to me. I have a drug history. Well, maybe it got something to do with drugs. So I believe when they couldn't put together something that fit into their mold, they went with the next thing on their list. And because they couldn't find her, and I was the last person with her, that's what they came up with. Constantly, everything was coming my way. It was always coming my way. Everything was always directed at me from Jump Street. There was never any kind of investigation until what actually happened. It was always him.
Coming up on the next episode of Killer Genes, part 2 of the DeAndre Lane and Bianca Jones case. DeAndre recounts the night before and the morning of the alleged carjacking.
But it was enough of a thump for you to be concerned as a father.
When I heard it, I heard it.
Questionable evidence is revealed.
Here's another thing. You had a prosecution saying that I drove the car and I parked the car where the car was found at. When you look at the footprints that are in the ground, in the mud and in the snow, in the surrounding areas of the car, none of those shoe prints match my shoe.
And the stolen car is found. But where is Bianca?
So they found the car, and yes, finally, yes, this is over. Let's get the baby back, and woo, yes. And then they were like, oh, she's not in it, and it was like, what? And then my mind just, like, went, like, what? Like, did she get out? Did she walk off? Did you look?